Wroth. It's the answer you're likely to get if you ask me who I think the worst character in Friends is, whilst my mouth is full of chocolate. But I looked in a dictionary and it's also a word. One that you use to describe the state of someone currently quite angry, which frankly seems ridiculous for a game so dangerously joyful and colourful. This is a gloriously day-glow tutti-frutti delight. A game so wildly saturated with bright neon tones that it's frankly advisable that you wear a pair of sunglasses, half to protect your eyes from the bright colours and half because you want the game to think you're cool. Hey, I review board games, what's up? Wroth is a game for 1 to 4 players in which you'll be fighting one another for control of these areas. Dumping units out into the field, trudging them towards trouble, holding key positions for delectable bonuses, and generally causing everyone else grief in a manner which will hopefully get you points. This is a game in the lovingly labelled dudes on a map genre. That's a little outdated as language goes, so I'll mainly go for area control, peoples on places, meeples on mapples. Neither of these work too well. Although, to be fair, dudes on a map, if you were going to have a bunch of people who would go to literal war over who gets a hill, it's going to be dudes, isn't it? And so maybe it's a weird echo of my own genetically encoded idiocy, but gosh, games like this, they get me very excited. They look like a lot of fun, don't they? As players, you're all going to build little armies, move them around, and then occasionally we fight. In Wroth, you're going to be aiming to have control of areas by the end of each round. At the start of the round, someone will roll all of these dice, and then you'll each take it in turns to draft from this selection. Each player picking 1 dice at a time, with the final unpicked die getting trashed. After that, you'll each take it in turns to activate a dice and take that action, and after everyone's used all of their actions, the round ends. You look at who's in control of all these areas, and people get points. You'll need 30 points to win the game, which is clearly marked here on the game's neoprene scoreboard. Yes, this is of course a game created by Chip Theory Games, creators of an old shut up and sit down favourite, Too Many Bones, an infamously waterproof game of poker chips and gnomes. Chip Theory, of course, having been cursed by a mermaid, have no choice but to continue making games using as much neoprene as is humanly possible. And while I've always made it clear that overly produced, heavy, plasticky games kind of make me feel a bit icky, this surprisingly dense and tight little production does play to the strengths of the materials used. Playmat printing, like this, often looks very washed out and low in contrast, and when you get special edition version of games that don't use a board and have a playmat, I often think they're just worse. They have muddier, darker colours, less visible lines, and you need to see lines. Board games are 50% lines. And while this material really struggles sometimes with contrast, with saturation it can sing. And for a genre that lives or dies on your ability to quickly identify different faction colours, this is a game where colours are king. And secondly, whilst I really don't think you need a washable playmat for a slow and ponderous Eurogame, here it isn't that stupid. I have been chastised in the past by you for having needlessly messy food in the proximity of board games. I will die on that hill, all right? No game of Imperial Assault is complete without a communal bowl of sharing dipping soup. And whilst this is not an appropriate game for that sweet brotherhood broth, this is a game that I want to play on a Saturday afternoon with beverages and nibbly bits. And whilst personally I really don't care if you get my gaming bits all grubby,
Matt, this is a family show!
a lot of people do care about that, and so I think this is not a bad solution.
Please!
So what are the things you're going to be doing on your turn? All of these actions are dead simple. This action lets you kill someone nearby. But don't worry, I know what you're thinking. Only one person? There's ways you can juice that up later. You can kill more than one person. Magical gem? Wow. That dice action gets you a magical gem. We'll come back to them in a little bit. Don't worry about it. The next action we're going to talk about is this Billy Basic Reinforce. This Reinforce action lets you deploy 2 fresh units from your player sheet onto the board, or it lets you move 2 units that are already on the board 1 space. So this is the deployment zone. This is where all the units go when they're not technically in the fight yet, but they will be in the fight soon. And you'll notice that this area is all one area, which is connected to here. This area is connected to one area, is connected to everywhere. Now, for ease of play, this system rules. It means it doesn't matter where you are sitting at the table, you can just deploy your troops to the area that's right next to you, because it's all just one big flipping area. But obviously though, aside from that, it's an affront to geography. This is a flagrant mockery of maps, and it feels wrong. Until you realise that yes, it's quite easy to go from the deployment zone to anywhere you'd like, but once your units are actually on the map there, it's really quite hard to physically move them around. This makes the next type of action absolutely invaluable. These two red little arrows, well, you can't use this one to move any troops, but it will deploy 2 basic units immediately to anywhere where you already are. So if you've managed to secure that central area, a full 2 movement spaces away from the deployment zone, you can just drop another 2 in there. Now, the distribution of faces on these dice means that this action's a lot more rare than the other ones. So snaffling it up early might be key, and other players will hopefully realize that that's invaluable for you, and they will take it away from you before you do that, because having a full army in the middle of the map, yuck. Of course, otherwise, it just seems like a reinforce action that's not as good as the normal one, which also lets you move units around. But what you lose in the flexibility here of having to deploy, rather than maybe moving, you make up for with speed. Because it's not just that, it's the fact that you're saving a full action of having to deploy and then move. As is true with most area control games, a lot of the game comes in the funny little dance of everyone trying to wait until the very last minute before they do anything that people might want to stop. Oh, don't mind me, sir. I'm just the nobody person. Oh, madam, don't worry. I won't do anything else. And then whomp, you move all your units out, you take control of everything, you get all of the points, and there's nothing anyone can do. This is the sexy little Venus flytrap that powers area control games. And the lovely thing about Wroth is you have so many rounds and they're so peppy that it feels like they're always happening. And you can sit there with these machinations and evil plans in your head, but because all of the actions for the round have been publicly drafted and are just sitting there on your board, anyone at any point can just look over and work out what you're doing. Which means the tension just ratchets up as you sit there waiting to hatch the egg of your terrible plan. Surely someone's gonna notice what I'm about to do and stop me? Surely. Oh, I like a board game. And here's a little spicy thing that I haven't even mentioned yet. These little tokens here that tell you what points you get for holding a region, well, some of the rewards give you points and a free action at the very start of the next turn. And because these tokens are all randomly placed at the start of each game, and because they all activate in order, going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it means you can have circumstances where at the start of the next turn, you have control of an area which gets you a free movement, and then you use that movement to get majority in the next area, which gets you another reinforce or a free gem. I mean, it's edge case stuff, but it's edge case stuff that will happen and that you can make happen. But after the game's been set up, you can see which areas are worth which amount of points, and some of them are worth loads. 3 points. 3 points for that. And then with the actions that you can take and being able to see those action dice on players' boards, the whole thing becomes pretty knowable. And it is knowable until the fact that you factor in that at the start of every round, dice. And this means that you really can't plan ahead that far. The next round is a complete bloody mystery. And when you're working out which of these dice you want to draft, you're obviously trying to come up with a plan for the remainder of the round, but sometimes you just don't get that many choices. Maybe other players get to draft dice before you do, and they snaffle up all of the unique ones, and then it gets to you, and I don't give a choice, I get that one. And then we all just take these ones because the rest of the dice are all the same. Or maybe you finish a turn thinking, and next turn I'm gonna move these troops over there, and then you roll the dice and inexplicably, but it can happen, like oops, pretty much all skulls. I guess we kill him. The distribution of sides on these dice is pretty much so that the gemstone and the special deploy are rarer, but then there's 2 chances of each for just a normal deploy or a normal kill a person. And honestly, killing a person in this game doesn't really get you anything. It's not ideal, which means more often than not, they're the dice that are left at the end and everybody just begrudgingly takes them. I like this because it removes some of the sourness. It means like, yes, I am going to probably hurt some of your army units, but that's because you didn't take the skull. You left me a skull. You left me with nothing but death. Oh, what was I supposed to do? Games like this can often get really sour when there's any opportunity for attacks to seem personal. So the fact that they've made this kind of unavoidable, it's a good thing. But you may be thinking at this point, hang on a minute, what happens if I just draft and all the dice I get are useless and I can't do anything with them? This game sounds terrible. Don't worry, there's a final special secret action you can do called Exodus. Instead of taking any of the actions listed on those dice, you can spend any 2 of your dice, including your special personal bonus dice that everyone rolls each round and also gets to use as part of an action. And I haven't really mentioned it, and I'm not going to mention it again because there's a rule book and I'm not Rodney Smith, alright? But on your turn, you can spend any 2 dice to do an Exodus action, taking as many units as you like from one area and moving them out to any adjacent areas in any way that you like. It's an incredibly powerful move, but the fact that you have to spend 2 dice to do it means you're more than likely tapping out of the round earlier than all the other players. So yes, you've caused a huge problem, but they probably still have a chance to try and fix that problem before you get the points. But once you accept that other players have these action dice that they could also spend to do an Exodus action, everything on the board is completely knowable. This is a game without any hidden information, apart from the one faction that has special units that literally are hidden information, at which point it's a game with 6 pieces of hidden information. Otherwise, each of the factions has abilities that you're going to need to account for. But you can big brain it out, only for 1 round, and then we roll the dice and who knows what's going to happen, but you can big brain it out for that 1 round. And that means that 2-player games of Wroth are tight and nasty. I think this is a fabulous 2-player head-to-head game. It's very fast, tactical. There's no sludgy tug of war here. Victories are often quick and often, frankly, decisive. Because the points value of the locations are randomized, and because you get a bonus point for being the only person in a territory, and because you get bonus points for perhaps having some of your special units on the battlefield as well, you can have a situation where you've taken 2 areas, I've taken 2 areas, you get 2 points, and I get 7. This is a game where if you're really savvy, you can shoot off and get tons of points and end it very quickly, and I like that. But I'm very aware that a lot of people don't like losing. If you don't play hundreds of board games a year like we do, then honestly, losing horrifically might be something that makes you sad. And I think that this is where what the game looks like becomes a little bit of an obstacle. You look at this and people think, oh, we're going to spend a couple of hours sitting down, doing some tacticals and making some strategic choices, where in reality, sometimes games can be over very quickly indeed. With 2 players, it's not so much of a problem. It's so peppy that you can just have a game, it's over in 20 minutes, you just play again, go, go, go. Although I would say it's here that the fact that you've got 5 different factions you can play as is less of a nice spice on the edge and more of an essential thing. If you just get absolutely monstered playing chess against Magnus Carlsen, and then they're like, do you want to play again? The answer is probably no. But, do you want to play again? But this time you can play chess as an orc. Ooh, okay, Magnus. I'll have a go. And I'll tell you this because I know that for some game groups it will be a huge red flag which will make Wroth a little untenable, but this is the kind of game where if you're playing with 3 or 4 people and somebody knows what they're doing, everyone kind of needs to keep an eye on what they're doing. Wroth is a game where you won't just lose, sometimes you will get battered. I've played this and I have been battered. I have played this against people and my lord, I have battered them. They have been battered by me and I'm not sorry. But also I think that even though it is a lot of fun as a 2-player head-to-head skirmish game, it's one that you have to approach with the idea of playing rounds. 5 factions each give you a slightly different twist on how to play the game. You've got some unique units and they have unique spells and powers. That's what gems are for. You use them to buy special units or to do the special spells that your things can do. You've got some sneaky daggery people, some barbarian people who leave traps everywhere, dwarves that mine more gems or steal them from people. My favorites are the orcs. Well, they're actually called Ooglan, but I'm calling them orcs. They could just deploy horrible big things to areas that other people control. They've got vampires. They've got a spell called Parasite that basically just brings back your troops from the dead as their troops. It's just a good time. The reason they're my favorite is because they're pieces of these little hands, and when you move into an area, you can just lean the little hand on another person's unit, as if to say, hey, how you doing? I'm just stroking your head, but actually, you're asserting your dominance on the board. And I do think that the fun that these factions inject into the game is really, really important. It means that even if you lose the game, you get something that you get to do. Each faction has 3 powers that they get to choose from at the very start of the game. And one of them in each set just lets you do something cool. Maybe it won't be tactically effective. Maybe it won't really make a difference, but it will be cool. You've got an ability that peppers the entire map with a hail of arrows. With these people, you've got a thing where if you want to, you can just drop 10 units onto the map, all at once. Area control games often don't give players space to have fun if they're not winning. And being able to have a laugh when you're losing is important because otherwise players will tend to work out their own way to do that, and sometimes it results in them just acting like dicks. In Wroth, actually most of the time, losing just a little bit feels really good, actually. Because do you remember that dice I threw in the bin? I didn't throw it in the bin. I lied. If at the start of a round you are the player who is absolutely definitively in last place, then you don't bin that last dice. You get it. You get an extra dice. It means most games, when it's pretty close, as it can be in the first couple of rounds, you want to be in last. You're like, oh, we're in joint last. Aw. You're not sad about being last, you're sad about not getting the dice. It's a similar thing with the Exodus move, right? You spend 2 dice, you move all those units. It's a system that means you don't really ever have turns that feel completely deflating. You never have that thing where you draft some dice and then things change and you go, oh, well, I actually can't do anything on this turn because I planned to do this, but didn't. No, you can just do this big move. And on those turns when you're crunching and strategizing and trying to work out what the perfect move is and your brain's had enough, it's a beautiful big red button that just lets you say, I don't know. It. Now I appreciate that some capital B board gamers will be capital H horrified by that statement, but the social contract of playing a board game relies on the idea of everybody remaining completely engaged. But if you put 4 people around any table, that just isn't how anything works. I am sorry, but yes, I was just on my phone. I haven't seen this human in months, and oh dear, we have just been talking. I'll be back to take my turn in a moment. I'm just making some communal soup. I really don't like this game at all, but I'm trying to be polite. Honestly, I'm just very, very, very tired. And it might not be ideal, but it is real. And I do like that this game features a move where you can pivot and go, I'm not thinking about this anymore. And in the process, you get to be James Bond in a casino. Da, 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 da. Because sometimes in board games, that's why we're here. I want to be in the casino. I want to do this. And while it feels like there must be loads of games we can think of that just let you turn your brain off for a bit and do this, when you try and come up with a concrete list of really good ones, you've got Comet. And I mean, even Comet's a bit too fiddly. I just love the fact that it gives me the opportunity to buy a Scorpion. And finally, I think one of the strengths of Wroth is the fact that because it is quick, it allows you to have the feeling of a big game by virtue of not really concentrating and playing quite slowly. A game of Wroth with people having some drinks and some snacks will take 2 hours, even though on paper it should have probably taken about 40. Play a normal game that should take 2 hours, you're going to be there for 6 or 7, and then Peter has to go home, and we can't even finish it. Wroth is, weirdly, it's sort of like the Smash Brothers, I think, of board games. And the fact that if you play it with a bunch of people who aren't really concentrating and are maybe slightly inebriated, you're going to have a great, colourful, fun time. But if one person in your group already knows how to do it and is really good at it, everyone else may well have a completely miserable time. Wroth gets the Shut Up and Sit Down recommended badge, with the caveat that in the way that the badge was originally intended to be used. We use it in different ways now and imperfectly, and that's fine. It's our badge, we can do what we like with it. But the idea was, if a recommended badge is on something, then anyone can pick this up and have a good time with it. I think Wroth is immediate, it is colourful, and it is the kind of game that people who don't play games as much often really want to play. And I've had some delightful games playing this with people who don't play as many games, and they've had a riot. But if you don't have this particular itch that needs scratching every now and then, there are other games that are arguably a bit more interesting. Inish is possibly my favourite area control game, but if you don't like the idea of the fact that you're not maybe fighting, some people really don't gel with that. They want to fight. I get it, but you're wrong. Old King's Crown has some lovely putting things on a map and feeling like you're doing some stuff. It's also got lots of cards. It's very good. A little more fiddly to get your head around. It's very good. Watch the review. If you're going to strip it down to the bare flipping basics, El Grande is the best area control game of all time, but I'll be damned if I'm going to play that when I want a giant scorpion. And then you've got Arcs, Root, any of the pantheon of games from those designers. They are, excellent, but also a little fiddly to get your head around, and it's very easy to just play a game and not really know what you're doing. Now, there's some overlap in those games of games that are Tom's favourite games, and honestly, he wasn't a big fan of Wroth. He thought it was okay.
It's all right.
So we will talk about that on a podcast soon, and you can hear his thoughts about it, why he didn't like it as much as I did. And that's the end of the review. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, that worked.